That's a clown question, bro.
Hi, what's up on you?
So I'm gonna kick some dirt.
He gets on base.
Just a bit outside.
I'm not the type of player that's going to be Johnny Hustle.
If you don't want me to watch the ball, you can go get it out of the ocean.
And welcome back to the show to be named later, part 2 of episode 43. I am your host, Chris Gianta. On the other side of the screen is Daniel Curran. We are talking about the 2008 World Series champion, Philadelphia Phillies.
That's right.
What kind of direction were those Phillies going in?
Yeah, so in 2007, the Phillies won the NL East, and it was their first playoff experience since 1993 when they went to the playoffs and lost to those Blue Jays that we did an episode on. And they actually got swept in the division series by the Rockies. And, you know, they were not supposed to win the NL East this year. They were down 7 games to the Mets with 17 games left, and the Mets quite simply choked as the Phillies surged. So a lot of people were, you know, saying, well, is this team for real, or was that month of September a fluke? And, you know, they had a lot of doubters to prove wrong. They also lost Aaron Rowand that offseason, who was third on the team in B-WAR the previous year. And also they traded for closer Brad Lidge, of course. And little fun fact about the Brad Lidge trade, when it happened, the Astros GM was former Phillies GM Ed Wade. And there was suspicion that Wade made the deal because of his Philly roots, which obviously is not true. Like, of course you're not going to do that. But the only other offer on the table for Brad Lidge at that time was from the Indians for Cliff Lee. So if the Phillies did not get Lidge and he went to the Indians, they obviously don't get Brad Lidge, and they probably don't get Cliff Lee either. So that trade worked out in multiple different ways for them. Yeah. They also signed Pedro Feliz to be their starting third baseman. And, you know, coming into spring training, there was a lot of question marks around this team. You know, as I just mentioned, can they repeat 2007? Can they take that extra step? And the reigning National League MVP, starting shortstop Jimmy Rollins, came out and predicted a 100-win season. Like, he did an interview in spring training where he was like, yeah, we're going to win 100 games and win the World Series. It's going to happen. So big-time expectations coming from J-Roll, the reigning MVP.
So this prediction of 100 wins in a season started out a bit shaky. Mm-hmm. Weird way to start a year. Here's a basic.
It was very symmetrical.
A rundown of how many games is this stretch? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. This is their first 20 games just by wins and losses.
It's very symmetrical.
Loss. So it starts loss, win, loss, win, loss, win, loss, win, loss, win. Interesting way to start a season. Definitely confused the fan base for sure. And the Phillies ended up finishing 15-13 in April. And it was the first time they had finished 500 or above since 2003. First time they finished 500 in that first month since 2003. Mm-hmm. They at the end of April, they were third place in the division. They were half a game out of first place, not first base. Mm-hmm. And the Phillies as a team in April had 41 home runs during that first month, and that led the majors. And Chase Utley was very spectacular. He was a very big part of those 41 team home runs through April 30, or on April 30. He led the league he led Major League Baseball in home runs with 11. No one else had more than 8. And Chase Utley had 11. He led the league in slugging with 766, OPS with 1195, ISO with 405, weighted runs above average with 17.2, WOBA with 491, weighted runs created plus with 202, and wins above replacement with 2.6. He led the majors in all of those categories.
That's right. So when May began, the Phillies started basically one of the best team-wide offensive stretches I've ever seen. So on May 2nd, the Giants were in town, and old friend Aaron Rowand hit a go-ahead home run in the top of the 10th to make it 5-4 San Francisco. And in the bottom of the 9th, Pat Burrell of the Phillies came up with 2 outs, 1 on, and sent the Philly fans home happy.
Long drive. It is out of here. Pat Burrell for a 2-run game-winning 9th-inning home run. Can you believe it? What a tremendous ending to this game. The Bills on their last strike and Burrow delivers.
That on the call right there is Ford Frick Award winner Harry Callis. And you're going to be hearing plenty of his amazing voice throughout this video, and we're very excited for that. So, I mean, the Phillies with a great win there. And then 2 days later, the Phillies actually hit another walk-off, which was manager Charlie Manuel's 500th career win. Pretty impressive. And then on May 16th, Jason Worth had a big game for him in a resurging season.
High drive into deep right field, and this ball's out of here. 3-run home run, Jason Worth. And just like that, Kate Esposito of Levittown winning $100 courtesy the McDonald's home run jackpot as the Phillies jump to a 3-0 lead here in the second.
It's just another example of how strong Jason Worth is. Charlie Manuel talks about him all the time, that if he ever figures it out, he could be a big-time home run hitter in the major leagues. Fastball, kept his head down. Look at this, a good swing at this.
Boy, right there. This should be a fastball.
Long drive. Is it a salami? Yes, way out of here. Grand slam home run, Jason Worth, who now has knocked in 7 runs, and the Phillies are pounding the Toronto Blue Jays here. It is 8-0 Phillies. Not a bad night for Mr. Worth. Fans are wanting Worth to take a curtain call here on his 7 RBI evening. And
Once by Mike Schmidt. 2-1, hit in the air, deep toward left center field. Worth looks up, that one is gone! Jason Worth has tied the record for RBIs in a ball game for a Philadelphia Philly. Not only that, it's his 3rd home run of the night. And the Phillies lead it 9-2. Have a night, Jason Worth. This is the 3rd home run, and he was right on it.
Oh, he just muscled that ball out, looking at that fastball.
So as it was mentioned, Jason Worth tied the Phillies single-game RBI record with 8. That still stands. It's he and Mike Schmidt on top of that. So then from May 5th to June 16th, the Phillies had a ridiculous offensive run for the ages. They went 24-16 during the streak with a +73 run differential. They scored double-digit runs 7 times. They also scored 20 twice. They're one of 5 NL teams of all time to have multiple 20-run games in a single season. And they led the NL in runs scored with 239, home runs with 55, RBI with 229, OBP with a 356 team OBP, slugging with a 469, OPS with an 825, weighted runs created plus with a 230. The next best was 204. Weighted runs above average with 37.8. The next best was 20.6. WOBA with a 357. Weighted runs created plus with 113. And wins above replacement with 11.6. The next best in the majors was 8.6. So, I mean, absolutely ridiculous, torrid pace this offense is on. But they had a very bad follow-up over the next week and a half. From June 17th until the end of the month, the Phillies went 2-9. They slashed 191, 273, 309, 581 during that stretch. And they were by far the worst in the majors at all 4 of those categories. They also had 51 weighted runs created plus. And obviously with the offense being bad, the pitching was a bit of a problem too. One guy in particular was Brett Myers, the closer from last year, who had gone back to being a starter after the Lidge trade. and he had a 5.84 ERA, and his negative his negative .4 FWAR was second to last in the majors, and also his 20.3 home run per fly ball rate was the worst in the majors. So he got sent down to the minor leagues.
So a very unfortunate stretch after an unbelievable stretch from this Phillies team kind of set them even. But they picked up the pace ultimately. And on July 3rd, 40-year-old Tom Gordon, former Red Sox, and father of D. Gordon, right?
Yes.
Yeah. 40-year-old Tom Gordon recorded a one-pitch save against the Atlanta Braves, and it was his last of 158 career saves.
I thought that was cool.
The Phillies were 52-44 at the All-Star break, and they were half a game ahead of the Mets for first place in the division at the All-Star break. Brad Lidge and Chase Utley represented the Philadelphia Phillies at the All-Star game, the legendary last All-Star game at Yankee Stadium in their last season. And I do remember, it is funny, maybe this is a connection, but I remember they were doing I think it was like their version of like the all-time teams, and they had a bunch of Hall of Famers, and I remember they streamed it on like Twitter. They streamed the whole All-Star game, like Twitter, YouTube.
Yeah.
Fergie Jenkins was one of the people.
Of course.
Was one of the people recognized at the game. So there's a little connection for you there. And but back to the Philadelphia Phillies, Chase Utley's 25 home runs in the first half is the most by a second baseman ever in the first half of any season.
That's right.
His 25 homers are the most by a second baseman ever in the first half. And at the trade deadline, after the All-Star break, the Phillies got starting pitcher Joe Blanton and outfielder / pinch hitter Matt Stairs at this trade deadline. And in Joe Blanton's Phillies debut, they faced the Mets at Shea Stadium, and they were also facing a multiple-time Cy Young Award winner, Johan Santana. The Mets were winning 5-2 in the ninth inning, but the Phillies scored 6 runs in the ninth, mostly on doubles by So Taguchi and Jimmy Rollins, and the Phillies won that game 8-6, kind of setting the tone for what was going to be happening in the National League East in 2008.
That's right. So now it's time for them to finish it off. On August 24th, the Phillies faced the Dodgers on Sunday Night Baseball, and the Dodgers were winning 2-1 in the ninth, with Pedro Feliz coming up with a man on second down to their last out.
Well, he's sitting dead red. Fastball, base hit. That's going to tie it. Victorino speeds home, and Feliz has delivered the big hit.
You know, I still would have rather attacked Tracy instead of pitching to the right-handed Feliz, because as you said, and we both know, this guy is a good fastball hitter.
So Pedro Feliz ties the game in the ninth. And later in the 11th, Feliz came back up with 2 runners on, trying to win the game for Philadelphia.
The possible winning run at third base. Everybody standing here in Philadelphia. That ball is hammered. Deep left center field. And adios!
So Pedro Feliz plays the hero in that one on a great Sunday night game. And then 2 days later, the Phillies were losing 7-0 at home to the Mets, and they chipped away and came back for a remarkable win in extras. And this game was highlighted by backup catcher Chris Kost.
Hard ground base hit left field. The Phillies with 2 men on base. And 1 out here in the 8th inning as Coast delivers a pinch single. Line drive. It is a fair ball down the left field line, going to the corner coast. A leadoff double here in the 10th inning.
Oh, that was just fair.
Ground ball, third base, right. Will not be able to throw the ball. You mentioned about right hurting his hand. He had no chance on that one to throw anybody out.
Swing and a line drive towards straightaway center field. That's going to win it for the Phils. What a comeback! Down 7-0. The Phillies needed 13 innings and 4 hits off the bench for Chris Coast to win this one 8-7. Say hello to first place in the National League East once again for the Philadelphia Phillies.
So another resilient game from the Phillies there, just 2 days after that last one. And Chris Coast with 4 hits off the bench. Pretty incredible. So now on September 1st, the Mets led the Phillies by 1 game in the division. It all came down to whatever happened that month. And, well, the Phillies went 17-8. The Mets went 13-12. By that default, the Phillies won the NL East, and that happened on September 27th, the second to last day of the season.
Ground ball up the middle, great play, Rollins, Utley. The Philadelphia Phillies are the National League Division champions of the East for the second straight year on a brilliant play by Jimmy Rollins.
So there it is. The Phillies win the NL East. They finished the regular season at 92-70. So now I'd like to talk about a few of my favorite performers on this team. Ryan Howard, 3 straight 40-plus home run seasons. That was the first time in Phillies history that happened. He had 48 home runs and 146 RBI that season. He also played all 162 games. And like I just mentioned, the 48 homers, the 146 RBIs, both of those led the majors. He also had an 881 OPS, 120 weighted runs created plus, and finished second in the NL MVP vote. Chase Utley, this was his 4th consecutive season with a 900-plus OPS. It is the 3rd time in baseball history that a second baseman did that for 4 straight years. The other 2 were Jackie Robinson and Charlie Gehringer. He also led all second basemen in home runs with 33, RBI with 104, OBP with 380, slugging with a 535, OPS with a 915, weighted runs above average with 35.1, WOBA with a 389, weighted runs created plus with a 134, FWAR with 8.2, and he ended up finishing 14th in the MVP vote. How about Jamie Moyer, a starting pitcher on this team, who was 45 years old? It is the only qualifying age 45 or over season in Phillies history per Fangraphs. He had a 3.71 ERA with 196 and a third innings pitched. Brad Lidge, the guy they got before the season in a deal, 41 for 41 in save opportunities. He was perfect. A 1.95 ERA, 69 and a third innings pitched. He finished 4th in the NL Cy Young voting and 8th in the MVP vote. Cole Hamels, 24-year-old ace starting pitcher, 14-10, 3.09 ERA, 196 Ks and 227 and a third innings pitched. His 1.08 WHIP led the NL. Shane Victorino, an outfielder for them, 4.3 Fangraphs WAR, was 14th among all outfielders. Also, Pat Burrell had 33 home runs. And the Phillies bullpen as a whole had a 3.22 ERA, which led the NL. So now the Phillies are going to the playoffs, and they got the Milwaukee Brewers in the National League Division Series. So game 1, Cole Hamels goes 8 in the third innings pitched, 2 hits, 0 runs, 1 walk, 9 strikeouts for a game score of 86. That is the best postseason game score in Phillies history, and at the time, it was tied for the best game score of Hamels' career. Utley hit a 2-run double, Shane Victorino had an RBI walk, and the Phillies won that game 3-1. So now it's game 2. The starting pitcher for the Brewers was CC Sabathia, who was undisputably the best pitcher in all of baseball after getting traded to Milwaukee a couple months ago. The Phillies starting pitcher for that game? How about Brett Myers? Remember him? That guy that got sent down to the minors? Yeah, he came back up and crushed it. He had a 3.06 ERA over his last 13 starts. Talk about making a comeback. The game was tied 1-1 in the second inning, and Myers came up with 2 outs against Sabathia.
Oh, a heater right here and see if Brett can, that's my guess, catch up.
That was against Jeff Suppan, part of that 4-game. Oh, for the other part of the slider. Well, Myers makes contact. Runner at third for the Phillies.
Nope, he went back to the slider.
Myers didn't chase. Phillies tie it up here in the second. And Myers breaks his bat, fouls it away. This is the 7th pitch of the at-bat. Full count. The 3-2. Fouls another one off. Walked him. How about that at-bat from Brett Myers? And walked only 4 times all year. And draws a huge walk here. That turns the lineup over.
So how about that at-bat there from Myers? I believe that was 10 pitches, Chris?
It was way too many pitches for
Yeah.
a guy facing Brett Myers.
Yeah, I mean, if you're CC, that you got to get that one out with 2 outs especially. So now 2 batters later, the bases are loaded, and Shane Victorino steps up.
And a drive in the left field. That is well hit. Ryan Braun looks up. Grand slam home run for Victorino.
The flying Hawaiian with the dagger, and that wouldn't have happened without that Myers at-bat. So Myers with that at-bat also goes 7 innings, allowing 2 runs. The Phillies won that game 5-2. So now in game 3 in Milwaukee, the Phillies offense goes silent against Dave Bush and company, and the Phils went 1 for 12 with runners in scoring position. That's not going to win you many games, and it didn't win them this one. The Brewers took that game 4-1. So now in game 4, Jimmy Rollins is leading off the game, and he wastes no time getting the Phils on the board.
Fire here this afternoon. And Rollins drills one deep right field. That one is well hit, and that one is gone. Jimmy Rollins quiets the Thundersticks immediately. Lead-off home run for Jimmy Rollins, and it's the Phillies who strike first.
I think now Jeff Suppan wishes that had been ball 4 instead of a check swing strike on the 3-1 count. You mentioned he's got to get the ball down, John, and he did not do that. That was a bell-tied pitch, and Rollins, as we have been talking about, likes to crowd the plate once the pitch is inside.
So Jimmy Rollins gets the Phillies up on the board real quick, and 2 innings later, Pat Burrell came up looking to put the nail in the coffin for Milwaukee.
2-2, Kendall setting up inside, and Burrell launches one deep left field, and Pat Burrell, a 3-run home run. Suppan trying to pound one inside, pays for it. 4-0, Philadelphia, as Pat Burrell launches one into deep left field.
Well, they chose the other option, Joe. They chose to go inside instead of feeding off that pitch that was a great pitch away. Get him reaching for something and go up and in, but it's right down the middle. Not the pitch you want.
And they also took the option of pitching around Ryan Howard to get to a guy who's been wearing out Jeff Suppan, and he comes through again.
So that would be the nail in the coffin, like I mentioned, for Milwaukee. And in the 9th, it was up to Brad Lidge for a pretty simple save situation.
As you said, if they win this game, they've got their rotation right the way they want it.
This could be it. Jimmy Rollins takes care of Kendall, and the Philadelphia Phillies are heading to the National League Championship Series. A date with the Dodgers is next as Brad Lidge closes the door on the Brewers, and the Phillies win 3 out of 4 against Milwaukee.
So that would be it for the Milwaukee Brewers. The Phillies are moving on to the NLCS. And the key performers in this series for the Phils, first of all, we got to talk about Shane Victorino, of course, the guy who hit the grand slam. His slash line for that series, 357, 471, 786 for a 1256 OPS. Also, Jason Worth, 313, 313, 813 for an 1125 OPS. Pat Burrell, 250, 357, 750, 1107. Lastly, Jimmy Rollins, 375, 412, 688, 1099. That's almost 4 guys they had in the 1100 OPS mark. And the Phillies as a team had a 2.31 ERA for that series.
So that leads into the National League Championship Series, where they are facing the Los Angeles Dodgers, a club that hadn't had a lot of recent playoff experience, but they were in the National League Championship Series this year, and in Game 1, in the bottom of the sixth inning, the Dodgers were up 2-0, and absolutely nobody on the Phillies could get a hit off of Derek Lowe. And fortunately for the Phillies, Shane Victorino reached on that would ultimately the team chase up.
In the air to right. Back is Ethier at the wall. This game is tied.
So Chase Utley ties the game for the Phillies. That error by the Dodgers plays in the Phillies' favor there, and allows them to tie the game. And 2 batters later, it was Pat Burrell's turn to do some damage on the Dodgers. Here he is, 2 batters later.
Ripped into left. Phillies on top.
After all that, after Derek Lowe, they end up taking the lead in their ace, Cole Hamels. Cole Hamels pitched 7 innings, and he got victory there. So that leads to Game 2 of the National League Championship Series, where it is a very unique game in Phillies history.
Yes.
A much remembered game in Phillies history for unique reasons, not because of something absurd by a single player happening. I guess you could say this is absurd by a pitcher's standard, but Brett Myers, the pitcher, had an unbelievable offensive
The game of his life.
Now it's the pitcher, Brett Myers. He gets a base hit into center field. Here comes Ruiz. Phillies lead it 2-1. Myers goes after the first pitch and gets it past Loney. 2 runs are going to score, and Brett Myers has done it again with his bat. It's 6-2. He doesn't know how he's doing it. He's just doing it. Goes after the first pitch here. And he's got another hit. 3 for 3.
2 to right field. And now 1 down the third base line. Hits himself in the head with his bat. And then adjusts his cap on the way to first. He's not used to being on base this much.
That's how he's doing it.
Close your eyes and hack.
So a very, very cool game for Brett Myers in Game 2 of the National League Championship Series. Became the first pitcher, 3 RBI in a postseason game since Dutch Ruther in 1919. That's the dead ball era. So yeah. Myers became the first guy to do it in the live ball era.
And he's the only guy to do it in the live ball era. And he might forever be the only guy to do it in the live ball era.
I mean, oh yeah, for sure. This, I mean, we're closing the book on a chapter in baseball history. And Brett Myers also got the victory in Game 2, and the Phillies won that game 8-5, giving them a 2-0 series advantage. And in Game 3, they're going to Los Angeles, but unfortunately, not a great game for the Phillies, mostly because of Jamie Moyer's bad performance, not his best performance. He ended up allowing 6 earned runs over 1 1/3 innings. And the real action, this wasn't really, not a memorable game for the Phillies in terms of, why they lost the game. But the real action was happening in the 3rd inning of Game 3 of this 2008 championship series.
And there's one warning behind the back of Victorino, who didn't like it because it was up around his head.
Victorino said, throw at my ribs, that's fine. Throw at my head, that's not fine. So a warning has been issued. Don't throw at my head. That's what he said, telling Russell Martin. Throw at my ribs, that's fine. Not my head.
So he knew it was coming. Something was coming, and he said, okay, we'll take it.
Yep.
But not up here.
Yep, that's right.
He stated his case.
Yep.
And he continues to Kuroda. We got action at Dodger Stadium. The benches now come out. So hold on now. The bench is empty. Nothing's going on yet. But Manny Ramirez is in the front of the pack. And that's obviously the last thing the Dodgers need, is for Ramirez to get mixed up in something. And either A, get kicked out, B, get injured, or C, have some suspension.
I was thinking the same thing. Dodger players taking their meal ticket to the dugout.
See Victorino say, just not in my head. Hit me in the ribs, not in the head.
So some heated back and forth between the Dodgers and the Phillies in Game 3 of that game. A rather uneventful game for what was done between the foul lines. But, when you're talking about a ball coming at Shane Victorino's head, you're going to remember that game. The Phillies ended up losing that game to the Dodgers 7-2, and the Dodgers ended up winning their first game of the series. They were now down 2-1. And in Game 4, the Dodgers were winning once again. This time they were winning by the score of 5-3 in the 8th inning. However, in the saying, karma, it's going to come back around. And Shane Victorino had that in mind with Ryan Howard on first base down 5-3.
That's driven down into the right field corner. This ball is gone for a game-tying 2-run home run. Shane Victorino has tied it at 5.
Shane Victorino comes up in the clutch once again. This time he gets some more personal, gets his personal vendetta out of the way there. But you could argue that this home run, despite tying the game, you could argue that this would not be the most memorable of the night. In that same,
not even close.
Yeah, yeah. I honestly I don't really remember the Victorino home run, but later in that inning.
This is a legendary moment.
Matt Stairs comes up to pinch hit with a man on first and 2 out to face the Dodgers closer, Jonathan Broxton.
Stairs rips one into the night, deep into right, way out of here. And Philadelphia gets a pinch hit 2-run shot. And the Phillies lead 7-5 in the 8th. Added to this team by Pat Gillick from the Toronto Blue Jays, and he hits the first home run off Broxton.
Just an absolute mammoth.
Majestic.
It's, yeah. I mean, that's what a majestic home run looks like, what Matt Stairs did in the 8th inning, Game 4 of the 2008 NLCS. And the Phillies ended up winning that game after Brad Lidge recorded a 4-out save. They won that game by the score of 7-5, and they were 1 win away from going to their first World Series in 15 years. And in Game 5, the Phillies were not pulling off the gas pedal at all, and Jimmy Rollins is about to show you exactly how.
And Rollins shoots one into deep right center. What a start for the Phillies, 1-0 as they strike first here in Game 5. What a good at-bat by Jimmy Rollins.
Fighting off the tough pitches, and he finally got a high fastball. When the Phillies clinched against Milwaukee, Rollins led off that game with a home run.
Rollins leads off the game with a home run, making it 1-0 Phillies real quick. And that kind of set the tone for the Phillies. And the Phillies later went up 5-0 on RBIs from Ryan Howard and Pat Burrell, as well as 2 runs on errors from the Dodgers. And after Cole Hamels pitched 7 innings of 1-run ball, it was Brad Lidge's turn. You know, a guy who the Phillies took a chance on, and it paid off. He went 41 for 41 in save opportunities, and he's here to send the Phillies to the World Series.
The 3-2 pitch, swing and a pop-up. This game is going to be over. Carlos Ruiz squeezes it, and the Phillies are the National League champions. The Phils move on to the World Series. Brad Lidge fittingly gets the final out as the Phillies have won it by a score of 5-1.
So the Phillies are headed to their first World Series in 15 years, trying to right the wrongs of their 1993 World Series and their 1983 World Series. They had lost 2 World Series in a row. They were looking to break that streak. And in the NLCS, Cole Hamels won NLCS MVP. He went 2-0 in his 2 starts, had a 1.93 ERA and 13 strikeouts in 14 innings pitched. Brad Lidge, Ryan Madsen, and J.C. Romero all combined for 11 2/3 innings pitched of no-run baseball. No runs allowed between the 3 of them in 11 2/3 innings pitched. Chase Utley, perhaps the leader of this team, slashed 353, 522, 647 for an 1169 OPS in the NLCS. And Pat Burrell was also spectacular. Hit 333 with an 868 OPS, and they are on to the World Series.
So now in the World Series, they are facing the Tampa Bay Rays, an expansion team that was only 10 years old that had just made it here for the first time. So, the Rays are more happy to be here, but the Phillies, they're here to win it. In the top of the first, Jason Worth draws a one-out walk against Scott Kazmir, which then leads to Chase Utley.
Utley rips one into right field at the track, at the wall. It's a good start for the Phillies. 2-0 here in the first. That'll shake off the rust.
So Chase Utley with a big start for Philadelphia in their first World Series in 15 years. And the Phillies got another run in the fourth on a Carlos Ruiz groundout. And Hamels pitched 7 innings of 2-run ball. And Brad Lidge.
And dating back to his last 3 attempts with the Houston Astros in 07, Brad Lidge has saved 49 consecutive games. The 0-2. Check swing, he went, 1 away. Good start to the bottom of the 9th inning for Brad Lidge. Two strikeouts to start the 9th. Another pitch on 3-2. Crawford pops it up. Down the left field line in foul territory, and the Phillies take game 1. Pedro Feliz backpedaling to squeeze it, and it's a 3-2 final.
Did you recognize the third base umpire?
Who was it?
I'll quote him with Terry.
Oh, it was that dude?
Yeah.
No, what's that guy's name again? Can you remind me?
I forget the name. I just know him from the Terry
He's
call.
just known for that call. Classic.
Highly recommend the video, not safe for
Beautiful
work.
video. I was at the game the day before that. Missed out on that one by a day.
That's pretty sick.
Anyways, the Phillies win that game 3-2. They are up 1-0 in the World Series. Game 2 was not as kind for them, however. Brett Myers gave up 3 runs in the first 2 innings, while James Shields, Dan Wheeler, and David Price held down the fort for Tampa Bay. The Rays won Game 2 4-2, 1-1 series tie. So now in Game 3, it's back to Philadelphia, and 45-year-old Jamie Moyer gets the start for the Phillies.
We've talked a lot already about the weather as you look at the statistics during the regular season. Very good numbers. Take the age out of the equation, and you're looking at a guy who is one of the National League's best starting pitchers, period. He almost gave the Phillies 200 innings. The 2-2. Changeup gets Longoria. Here's a 2-1. And he lifts one into right center field. Back is Victorino, who says he's got it. He does. Tagging and scoring is Crawford. The stolen base pays off, and this game is tied at 1. The 1-2 pitch. Got Upton looking. Moyer fools him, changes up, gets his 3rd strikeout. Who's crouched over at the plate and hits it hard, but right at Utley, and that will do it for the first 4.5. For Moyer, 82. And he gets Iwamura for his 4th strikeout of the night. Got him looking, 2 out. Wait the first pitch to Longoria. And he shoots one into left field. Back is Burrell at the wall to end the inning.
How'd the park hold that one?
It has to be the wind. The wind is blowing straight in from left. 2nd and 3rd, nobody out. Gross hits it to first. Good pick by Howard. The race to the bag for the out. Crawford scores, and it's a 4-2 game. He'll hand off and then receive a hand.
about that? 45 years of age, getting it done on the biggest stage possible for Jamie Moyer.
Yeah, quite a, something you definitely do not see a lot.
Ever.
Yeah.
So the Rays actually went on to tie the game in the 8th after Moyer departed. And in the bottom of the 9th, with the game tied, the Phillies loaded up the bases without hitting the ball on a hit by pitch and 2 walks with no outs for Chuch Ruiz.
Strikeout pitch. Chop to third. Play at the plate. Phillies take game 3.
So that's it. The Phillies win game 3. They're up 2-1 in the series. So now game 4. The Phillies are winning 5-2 in the 5th. And pitcher Joe Blanton, who they got at the trade deadline, came up trying to do whatever he could to help his team out.
The 2-1 is hit well into left. How about Blanton going deep? Unbelievable. You have to go back to 1974. Kenny Holtzman, the last pitcher to hit a home run. Blanton is now the 15th. Joe Blanton's first at bat as a Philly, he had a hit. And his last at bat as a Philly, he's had a hit.
So Joe Blanton with a home run, a little bit unexpected, but cool to see it nonetheless. And, although seeing him do that was cool, this game, make no mistake about it, belonged to Ryan Howard.
2 on, 1 out. And Howard hits it in the air to left. This ball will carry out. 5-1 Philadelphia. Charlie Manuel telling us that if Ryan Howard gets hot, he can lift this team on those broad shoulders and carry them to a world championship. A home run last night and a standing O tonight. Breaking ball in the middle of the plate. Gone. Trevor Miller. And that ball is absolutely hammered. 10-2.
So Ryan Howard takes control of that game. The Phillies end up winning 10-2, and they are now 1 game away from a World Series championship. So now we go to game 5. Shane Victorino hits a 2-run single in the first to make it 2-0 Phils. Good start. However, Evan Longoria hits a single in the 4th to make it 2-1, and Carlos Pena hits an RBI single in the 6th to tie it at 2. Then it rained a lot, and the rain delay caused the game to be postponed to be resumed in 2 days, but it would pick up where it left off, so it's not like they're restarting the game from scratch. So 2 days later, we pick it back up, a 2-2 game in the 6th, and Jason Worth hits an RBI single in the bottom of the 6th to make it 3-2 Philly. In the top of the 7th, Rocco Baldelli hits a game-tying home run to make it 4-4, so it's back and forth. And later in the inning, the Rays had the go-ahead run on second with 2 outs for Akinori Iwamura.
Runner at second, 2 out, and Iwamura grounds one up the middle. Utley, good play, has no play at first, throws home, and out is the call to end the inning. Bartlett kept running as Utley hung on to the baseball instead of throwing to first.
Looks to first, fakes to first, comes home. Alert play by Utley.
Bartlett out at home, and the top of the 7th is over. Let's go back to that play that ended the top of the 7th inning. Iwamura got the hit, but Utley kept it on the infield and got the out at the plate.
Utley faking toward first and then throwing home immediately, realizing Bartlett had grounded third. And look at the tag by Ruiz. J.C. Martin on the other, J.C. Romero on the other hand, was breaking toward first base. That's why he's almost in the way of the runner.
Crazy good heads-up play there from Chase Utley to prevent a run. Chris, you saw who that base runner was too, right?
That was the 17th runner-up of the 2008 MVP vote.
That's right, Jason Bartlett, one of our favorite players ever. So the game remains tied after that play. And in the bottom of the 7th, Pat Burrell hits a leadoff double. Victorino hits a ground out. No one moves. But then Pedro Feliz comes up, looking to take back the lead.
Pitcher spot. Infield in. And a ground ball up the middle. Base hit. Pedro Feliz delivers. 4-3 Philadelphia.
So the Phillies go up in Game 5. And J.C. Romero pitches a 1-2-3/8. And then in the 9th, who else to finish it off but Brad Lidge?
Fans on their feet. Rally towels are being waved. Brad Lidge stretches. The 0-2 pitch. Swing and a miss. Struck him out. The Philadelphia Phillies are 2008 World Champions of Baseball. Brad Lidge does it again and stays perfect for the 2008 season. 48 for 48 in save opportunities, and let the city celebrate. Don't let the 48-hour wait diminish the euphoria of this moment and the celebration. And it has been 28 years since the Phillies have enjoyed a world championship. 25 years in this city that a team has enjoyed a world championship, and the fans are ready to celebrate. What a night. Phil's winning 4-3. As Brad Lidge gets the job done once again.
And there it is. For the first time in 28 years, the Philadelphia Phillies are World Series champions, and Brad Lidge with the perfect season, 48 for 48.
Yeah, remarkable. And, you know, especially from a team who was lacking lacking a strong pitcher in the back end of the bullpen. You take a chance on Brad Lidge, who's coming off some off years. You know, he was an all-star with Houston, and then he had some bad years after giving up that Pujols home run in 2005.
And he needed to change an environment.
Yeah, needed to change the scenery, and he comes up big, 48 for 48, gets the last strike of the World Series for you. Just a great story.
So Cole Hamels wins World Series MVP, another MVP for him, 1-0 with a 2.77 ERA, 8 strikeouts, 13 innings pitched. Throughout the postseason, Hamels went 4-0 with a 1.8 ERA, a 190, 244, 281, 525 slash line against. Brad Lidge throughout the postseason, 9 1/3 innings pitched, 1 earned run, 13 Ks, a 171, 237, 229, 465 slash line against, and 7 saves. Of the 11 wins that they have, Brad Lidge had saves in 7 of them. Jason Worth in the World Series probably could have won World Series MVP if it wasn't for Hamels. 444, 583, 778, 1361 slash line. Carlos Ruiz, 375, 500, 688, 1188. Ryan Howard, 286, 375, 762, 1137 with 3 home runs. Chris, this is a team, to put their legacy quite simply, they came, they saw, and they conquered. They knew the task that was ahead of them. They knew that they had everything to prove this year. They had to prove that their 2007, remarkable run to the playoffs wasn't a fluke. They proved that they needed to prove that they were here to stay, and they did all that perfectly.
Yeah, and luckily they were able to, because I mean, this was the first team of what potentially could have been a dynasty in Philadelphia. They go back to the World Series in 2009, and I think this season kind of set the tone for that. I mean, they won 100 games in 2011, and this team kind of, 2007 probably set the tone, but this team definitely legitimized baseball in Philadelphia in the late 2000s.
Yeah, I mean, this team never quit. They never said die. Like a lot of championship teams, I mean, they had so many comebacks like that in the regular season. They were down in the 8th inning of Game 4 of the NLCS. Plenty of other games as well. They got big contributions all around from pretty much everybody. I mean, I think every player in the starting lineup was mentioned at least once in like a highlight, whether it was in the regular season or the postseason. So I mean, everyone did their part. The pitching, Cole Hamels emerged at age 24 to be a legitimate ace. Of course, Brad Lidge, his comeback story. Brett Myers was a great story that we talked about, getting sent down and figuring it out afterwards. Jamie Moyer at age 45. Chase Utley reassuring that he is the best second baseman in baseball. You could probably argue he's the best hitting second baseman ever since Joe Morgan.
Yeah, you could make the argument there. I mean,
I think the one person in his way would be Robinson Cano.
Yeah, Robinson Cano, and he was a better pure hitter just from the batter's box than like Ryan Sandberg and Roberto Alomar.
Yeah.
Roberto Alomar might have the edge in terms of total offensive production because of what he did on the base paths. But yeah, Chase Utley as a hitter just from the batter's box, probably the best. Yeah, since Joe Morgan, that would make sense.
Chase Utley should be a Hall of Famer. Obviously I don't have a vote. I'm not in the BBWAA, but when he appears on that ballot, I will be circling his name.
Yeah, and the defensive metrics like him, and I don't think his defensive ability gets talked about enough. But yeah, and the 2008 Phillies, they were a result of a very good a very good executive, very good management from the front office. They built a very good core with, Jimmy Rollins, Ryan Howard, Chase Utley, Cole Hamels.
I believe Gillick took over in 2005.
Yeah, and then they were able to get the guys in the offseason like Brad Lidge. So it was a good result of that, and that's probably why they were able to keep winning throughout the late 2000s. It wasn't just a one-and-done thing.
And I mean, also with Jimmy Rollins just coming out in spring training and being like, obviously I know they didn't get the 100-win season, but I think they're happy with what they got. And it was clear that this team wanted it more than anyone else, and they got it.
Yeah, they came in. Yeah, I mean, they had a very bad taste in their mouths from the previous year, and they knew that they legitimized themselves in 2007, and then they really cemented themselves as that great team in 2008, and as a result, you win a World Series.
So that is going to do it for our Philadelphia Phillies of 2008 segment. Another great team to cover, great story all around, great players, great management, great ownership, great everything. And this is a very fun team to cover. I'm really glad that they won it all. So now
that leads into our favorite part of the episode. And I guess a little program announcement is we will be doing 2 more of the history shows before the baseball season starts. And then once the off season hits, like probably our second episode after the World Series, we'll get right back into the history.
Which is perfect because we're gonna have 15 down and have 15 to go.
Yep. Yep, and I think that's a good way to map out our offseason because we do get, the reason we're doing this now is probably because we're a little bored, and we're going to be bored during the offseason, especially with just baseball. We'll probably have, hopefully we'll have some other stuff keeping us busy. Hopefully we won't be locked down forever, but yeah. And if you're unaware of what's happening, if this is your first episode, because they're, basically since mid-March, we knew there was not going to be baseball for a while, so we decided to pick 30 players and 30 teams to talk about. I picked 30 players. Daniel picked 30 teams. We randomly assigned them numbers through computer randomization, and then we each pick the other. I pick a team. I pick a number for the team we were going to be talking about for the next week.
Yep.
Daniel will pick a number for the player we were going to be talking about for the next week.
You pick first.
That's how it's worked for the past 13 weeks. Get you basically get the life and career of the player and the story of the team. Been very fun to do.
Yes.
And that's it'll be bittersweet when it comes to a close after 15 episodes. But people, it's timeless, so people will always be able to go back and check it out if they're new to the podcast, which I like, definitely. It's not just time based. So I am picking first this week, and
number 1 through 20.
1 through 20. So next week we are going to be talking about team number 15.
Number 15. Okay. This team didn't win the World Series, which is okay. Not every team on this list does. But one thing that you can't deny is they played the game the right way, and that is the 2005 Houston Astros.
Yes.
Yep. Another Brad Lidge team.
Another Brad Lidge team. Yeah, they definitely, they didn't shortcut anything there.
No. Nope. They were a respectable team. I mean, we talked about the team that beat them in the World Series too. But now we're going on the opposite side of that clubhouse. You got, of course, Brad Lidge closing it out, like we mentioned. You got Craig Biggio is on that team. Jeff Bagwell is on that team, 2 Hall of Famers. I think Lance Berkman was on that team too, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And all jokes aside, this was the 2019 Nationals before the 2019 Nationals. They started off terribly.
Yeah, they did.
And they came back. They got the wild card spot and went to the World Series. They won the National League. And they got vengeance over the Cardinals from the previous year.
Yep.
But yeah, I'm actually very excited about that. That team.
So now it is my turn to pick.
Yes.
We're gonna do player number 6.
Player number 6. It's appropriate that after a lack of pitchers, we get 2 pitchers in a row.
There we go.
This one, Fergie Jenkins, Fergie Jenkins was a guy who, he was kind of under the radar. He was just more of a grinder, a guy who was able to accumulate a lot of innings and just kind of go under the radar. Didn't get any postseason flair. I just gave it away.
Sandy Koufax.
Sandy Koufax.
Nice.
This guy, Sandy Koufax, he was kind of the opposite of that. He didn't post a lot of innings, but he was dominant for his day. And I can't believe I totally gave it away. But, yeah.
That was anticlimactic.
Yeah, anticlimactic. But yeah, this guy, yeah, he was kind of the opposite. He didn't accumulate a lot of innings, but he was absolutely dominant with strikeouts. He was probably the original, strikeout master. He was the first guy to get to 10 strikeouts per 9. And he was also an unbelievable postseason performer as well.
Also, people forget he was out of the game by age 30.
Yeah. And,
he pitched until his arm fell off.
Pretty much, yeah.
What more can you ask from a guy?
Yep. So that is going to be episode next week, episode 44 will be Sandy Koufax and the 2005 Astros. I hope you enjoyed episode 43, where we were talking about the Fergie Jenkins and the 2008 Phillies. If you are on Apple Podcasts or Spotify and you want to watch videos with us. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. It is STBNL with Chris Gianta and Daniel Curran.
Also, shout out to Baseball Reference, Fangraphs, and MLB on YouTube. This production would not be possible without those three.
Yeah, and shout out to Society of American Baseball Research.
Yes.
Helped us out. The Athletic. I already shouted out Joe Poznanski. Yeah, shout out to all that. If you want to follow us on social media, follow me on Twitter at Chris_Gianta. Follow Daniel on Twitter at Daniel_Curran. And follow our Instagram at STBNL Podcast. Definitely going to have some good stuff on the gram for you throughout this baseball season when it happens on July 24th. We hope you enjoyed the Fergie Jenkins and 2008 Phillies episode, and we look forward to seeing you on Wednesday when we are talking about Sandy Koufax, and on Friday when we are talking about the 2005 Houston Astros. See you then.